Hello there, ladies, gentlemen, and deceased. My name is Mighty Sophia, and I am going to be breaking down for you guys today the latest episode of The Walking Dead, Crossed? Cornered? What is the freaking title? I think it's Crossed. I'm gonna go with that for now. You will have to pardon me because I am not in my natural habitat right now. I am currently vacationing at the Oregon coast with my grandparents. And I found these fantastic spectacles, which I am entirely tempted to incorporate into my regular wardrobe, but I will not. I am just having a good time, okay? And if you can hear the sound of the ocean, that is because I'm right freaking next to it, and I apologize for the ambient noise, but I just shouldn't really have to, because the coast is great. Anyways, we are going to talk The Walking Dead. I am running on approximately 10 hours of sleep in the past 48. And thus, I hope that the things that I say will make sense, and I will touch on as many things as is humanly, mentally, physically, emotionally possible. For me, this was one of those rare episodes in the 5th season where we actually see all the groups brought back together. And, you know, I read a couple of reviews before I embarked upon making my own vlog just to kind of get the gist of what other critics were thinking. And some people argued that the effect of bringing all the groups back together at this point in the game kind of diluted the impact of all the different group arcs that we've seen going on. And I could kind of see how that is, but really at this point in time we are prepping for a major battle. The mid-season finale is next week, and so we're kind of in that awkward transitional period where we are ramping up for the action and not wanting to get too hot and heavy too early on. Although that's not necessarily a problem. It's not as if you can't have two really intense episodes back to back. But we got to see some things resolved. We got to see some clear goals defined for characters and lots of different characters interacting with one another and dealing with psychological strife and all kinds of things, as well as the really visceral, gritty scene of the Grady Memorial Hospital and the wasteland in which it is set. Always really exciting to be back in that urban landscape. Especially with the kinds of walkers that we encounter there. Not so much walkers as sluggish remains. You know, it's really crazy and very well done with the props department for the way that they construct those horrifying images. You know, we're so used to seeing the knit and the grit, and yet every once in a while they will take it to a whole new level, and I gotta respect them for that. So I'm gonna do my best to discuss everything that we saw in this episode this week. And did I say spoiler alert? Because there shall be many spoilers here. So without further ado, let's dive into the thick of things. So I'm gonna first talk about the fallout of the GREATM group, okay? And I have to say that was entirely way too adorable of Tara to come up with a group name with the little, you know, initials on the water bottle caps, and, you know, trying to create a sense of group solidarity as they are dealing with the reality of their shattered dream of saving the world through Eugene. Now, Eugene is he's sort of a non-presence in this episode, as he is slightly unconscious thanks to Mr. Abraham. And Abe is a very stoic figure throughout much of this episode as well, except when Rosita tries to get him to look at her, look into her, and he lashes out to nearly violent consequences as Maggie quickly intervenes. But we get to see at the very end that he finally accepts the water from Maggie. And I think it was really cool too that Maggie remained with him even instead of Rosita. You know, we got to see Rosita and Glenn and Tara go off and a little hunting party in the woods, and they found a yo-yo, and they found fabric that they got to cut up, and, you know, grabbing supplies, all that jazz. We got to see them kind of bond with one another. And then Maggie and Abraham was a really interesting pairing. And it steers us away from kind of the classic quintessential, like, relational drama, boyfriend-girlfriend thing, we see a different side to their characters and the ways that their characters collide with one another. So I think that was a cool choice to have Maggie remain behind and keep an eye on him and ultimately get him to a place where he is willing to move forward. And that's just I think it's just the tip of the iceberg for him. But I believe that he's got it in him to survive, and that's really evidenced in that final, really beautifully poignant scene that we saw in the episode. And of course, Tara is kind of a freaking peach in this episode. She is as adorable as ever and practical and helpful, and we see Glenn kind of seething with rage as they mull over what exactly to do about the truth with Eugene. And you know, Tara is talking about how he had one strength in the world and he used that to survive, and yet here we are pissed off at him, and Glenn's like, "You're damn right." And we really can't blame him. I mean, there's this part of us that's like, yeah, and then the part of us that we've seen these hard-cut survivors, we've seen them adapt to insurmountable struggles, and we think, you could probably try your hand at that too. Come on, we're a couple years into this business. You should pick up the pace. I think we probably feel similarly about what's going on with Father Gabriel too. But and it's interesting, of course, to see how Rosita demonstrates her water filtering abilities that she learned from Eugene. So he did implement a system to keep them all hydrated. So hey, he's contributed something in this world, you know, so that's kind of a good thing. And then we hear at the end of the episode, as he's coming back around from getting knocked out, totally sounds like he is transformed into a walker, but I think that he's still around because the happy music was still playing during that time as Maggie went to check on him. So we'll see what's going on there and where exactly the group is going to head. But I loved what we got to see about Rosita in this episode too, because we really haven't known very much about her up until this point or more recently. So it's good to see her really come into her own as a character and as someone who is kind of important to us. Yet another person that we get to lose, you know. So then we switch over. Let's switch over to Grady. What's going on with Beth there as she is going on her clandestine mission to rescue Carol. Now, I think that it is incredibly important that we see Beth and Carol in the positions that they're in this episode. There is so much that the group owes to Carol. And Rick emphasizes that he owes her, especially as she carried his daughter all that time, and he having thought that he had lost almost everything, finally regaining this piece of himself, the last piece of glory that he has of beginning a family, you know. And so we see her in a place where she is laid bare. There is nothing that she can do in the situation, and she is one of the most powerful warriors in the game. And so we have to sit in suspense and watch everybody scramble around her on the periphery, trying to find ways to strategically get to her and get her back into their fold. And then we see Beth playing a very integral part in that, and then Dawn actually facilitating Beth doing that, not knowing that Beth has this past with Carol and all this craziness. So I love that we get to see that there is more to Dawn than meets the eye. It's not all black and white when it comes to her, and it really seemed that way with the first episode in which we encountered her, and yet there's a lot more to her. There's a lot more that's nuanced, and we're trying to figure out, you know, what is behind her decision to let Beth go forward in this, to actually undermine Dawn's direct orders to her staff. And I think it's because Dawn senses this huge power struggle that is unfolding with her and the fellow cops, although one of the other cops that Rick's group captures says that the real cops are gone, you know. So that's kind of an interesting idea too, is the presence of a law enforcement figure in a world that is seemingly without law, or at least without society. And so what does that make law, you know? Anyways, I could get all philosophical on you, but I'm sure that you guys can do that on your own time. So yeah, so very interesting to kind of see Dawn go about that, because she didn't have to do that. She didn't have to support Beth in that way, and yet here she is. And so the big question now is is there any possibility that she might join up with Rick's group and try to find a way out? Because there is a big war that is brewing. But now it's a little bit trickier to say, you know, what side she's going to be on as the bullets start to fly, you know. So that was really cool. I am super ridiculously proud of Beth for standing up for our beloved Carol. Getting all the brownie points in my book, sister. You are rocking it. So then we switch over. Let's actually hip-hop back to the church before I forget to discuss that. So we see, we get to see Carl trying to instruct Father Gabriel in the art of self-defense. And yeah, that can be a pretty violent process, but if he wants to be of any use to this world, if he wants to redeem himself from the acts that he has committed in the past that led to so many people being killed, if he wants to come back from this in some way and be a part of something that matters, you know, he's got to fight. He's got to step up to the plate and take a crack at things, you know. And so while it appears that, albeit very sweatily, he is trying to learn from what Carl is teaching him, he ends up prying up the floorboards and shimmying his way on out of the church that he likely feels has been defiled as the group is trying to board it up and, you know, prepare for battle. So it is no longer a sacred place for him. And it's interesting too, because Carl was telling Father Gabriel that you can't just stay in one place anymore, and you've got to fight and you've got to move. And so, well, we see that he does move and he almost fights, but then as, you know, as a jump scare Walker is now writhing on the ground and he is ready to bring the stone down on its head, all of a sudden he sees the cross necklace and he can't do it, but and this is so ludicrous to those of us who are seasoned veterans in this world. Even as viewers, we're like, dude, just how is that the thing that you see? You know, this doesn't make any sense, doesn't add up. And also, jump scare walkers don't add up to me anymore. I know that it's something that's done for this dramatic haha moment, but it doesn't. No, they're always, you know, there's no way you can't hear them, okay? And just, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'm sorry. And it pisses me off. But anyways, that happened. We see that he fails. We'll see how far he makes it and if he tries to return to the group and actually, you know, do something for a change. And Michonne tries to be a presence of peace and assistance to Father Gabriel, although it has been way too freaking long since I have seen that woman in action, and that makes me sad and a little bit emotionally constipated, because Michonne is a beautiful warrior princess and I like to see her doing her thing. So I definitely look forward to not having to be split between the church and other places, because again, the church feels like this really asphyxiatingly tight space compared to the rest of the world out there. So that brings me back to the party that has gone out to Grady Memorial to try to make the 2-for-2 exchange for Beth and Carol. So we got Rick, we got Sasha and Tyrese and Daryl, and am I missing anybody? I totally feel, oh, and Rick himself. So there was one of the trending hashtags for The Walking Dead was Ricktatorship, and I mean, I think he's definitely taking control here, but I don't know if I would go so far as to call it a Ricktatorship. We do actually really get to see Rick on a crazy edge, and that Daryl has to bring him back down from, when it looks like he's gonna shoot one of the cops point blank, and he's having a hard time convincing himself to not do it, you know? So that was a really powerful scene, that Daryl was the guy who was like, hey, watch yourself. 3 is better than 2. and Rick ultimately agrees, which is good. Also, really visceral, intense scene with Daryl, and we know that, yeah, his life is on the line. But in the context of the show, we know that if he is going to be lost, it is going to be in a far more dire situation, something that has really been built up to. We just know this because of the way that the main characters are, you know, they are protected by plot immunity, shall we say. And I'm not necessarily going to say that's a bad thing. I'm not necessarily going to say it's a good thing. So that is just a thing. Anyway, so when he's like, you know, between two ferns, between two walkers, or again, they're really not walkers. They are freaking plastered to the ground by their own guts. Call that what you will. I wipe my hands of that process. Okay, anyways, so he's between the two walkers on the ground, you know, chokehold with the guy up here, and he's down here, and they're down here, and then all of a sudden he freaking rips the head off of this walker and uses it to knock the other guy. That is some truly artistic warfare there. I gotta say, that really struck me as art, and in the instant I was just like, is that, because, you know, we see that he's like grabbing and trying, it's like, what exactly are you even doing, Sir Daryl Dixon? You know better than this. And then, well, he did know better, so I applaud you, sir. That was really good and really freaky, and I did not like to watch it, and that is a sign of a job well done in this show. It's very visceral and nasty. And so we also get to see the fallout of Sasha dealing with the loss of Bob, and she has a lot of guilt about the fact that she was not able to actually put him down herself. And Tyrese is like, you know, what's important is that you let yourself feel it. You were there, you know, in a spiritual sense. And then that kind of softens her up with the sort of shady cop. I mean, he doesn't even seem remotely shady in the way that he acts towards others, but he's almost he's so amicable and diplomatic that you know that something's gotta be up. You absolutely know. Even when he puts down the BS that his partner is trying to feed them in order to get them to walk free, and it seems like he's trying to go about all of this in a good way, it just doesn't all add up. So unfortunately, Sasha is softened up in that way. I think his name is Lamson. I really can't recall. But we all feel the tension as she turns her back on him, and she goes to take out the guy, and he knocks her out. We all see it coming, and that is going to be the catalyst to some crazy action next week. But it's cool to see how that was connected to Sasha's emotional struggle and her rage over her inability to do what she felt she needed to do for Bob. And yeah, so we get to see how characters deal with loss in the show, but that's also balanced really nicely with the hopeful side of things, with things being meaningful. And we see how all of these characters love and care for each other so much in this really abysmal and dark world. And we haven't always had a really good balance of that in seasons past, and so it's really it is really gratifying to see all of these relationships developed, and to see the light and the dark, the way that they're juxtaposed, and how things flow in the show. So I love the really powerful Rick that we have seen this season, and it's crazy to see how far he has come from, you know, having been a cop himself, and now he is back dealing with other cops, and it's really fascinating to see because he's come so far from that, so far from feeling like he can show mercy first. He lays down the law in a very lawless world, and yeah, I'm very enthusiastic about the finale next week. Of course, not enthusiastic about the fact that we're not going to have The Walking Dead to break down, but it's been such a great season so far. I have very high hopes and expectations for that which is to come. So let me know what I missed in this review. I'd be more than happy to talk with you guys in the comments. I've been really busy in my personal life lately, but I'm going to try and communicate more with you guys. So once The Walking Dead and Gotham are done, I'm going to be in a bit of a lull as far as my channel goes, so I'm going to try to do maybe some more film reviews, maybe like season reviews of shows that I'm catching up on. I have no idea what I'm going to have time for yet, but I really want to make time for stuff on my channel until we've got Bates Motel and The Walking Dead and Hannibal and all that good stuff back. Oh, and Better Call Saul is coming. That's coming in February too. So I will, of course, I will be back and doing tons of stuff. It'll be great. So thank you guys so much for watching this review. I want to hear from you guys. What did you think? Did you enjoy this episode? I mean, again, definitely felt really transitional, and it was kind of strange to go back to the switching between groups. But it's all building up to something. So we'll see what kind of catastrophic explosion of madness we get next week, and I will be there for that. It'll be fun. So you guys take care and leave all your thoughts. I will be back before you know it.